What really happens when a kid commits a crime? I mean, a serious crime. It's a question that's pretty tough to think about, right? Well, it's right at the heart of this incredible 2025 British miniseries called Adolescence. And today, we're going to break down why this show is so much more than just another TV drama. Honestly, it's like a mirror being held up to our world right now. And the show wastes no time. Right from the get-go, it forces you to wrestle with this exact question. This isn't your typical whodunit. We know who did it. The real mystery here is about responsibility, and that's a much harder thing to figure out. The way this show is filmed, it doesn't let you look away. That question is baked into every single frame, and you kind of become part of the search for an answer.
Okay, so let's talk about the plot for a second. On the surface, yeah, Adolescence seems like a pretty standard crime story. You've got a 13-year-old kid, Jamie Miller, and he gets tangled up in something really serious. But that's just the hook. It's what gets you in the door. The show uses that one event to start peeling back all these layers on something way, way bigger.
See, the crime itself isn't really the story. It's more of a catalyst, you know? It's the lens that the whole series uses to zoom in on all the crazy, intense pressures that young people are facing today. We're talking about pressure from their friends, from the digital worlds they're practically living in, and of course, those crushing expectations from society.
All right, so to really get what's going on in the story, we first have to talk about how the story is told. Because the way it's filmed, it's a massive part of the message. They use this very specific and honestly super challenging technique to pull it off.
So get this. Each of the 4 episodes is filmed as a one take. That means it's one continuous, unbroken shot from the very beginning to the very end. No cuts, no edits, absolutely no chance to look away or catch your breath. And trust me, this isn't just some fancy stylistic choice to look cool. It's a deliberate tool, and it's designed to make you feel something really specific and really, really claustrophobic. And man, does it have an impact. Because they never cut away, the show builds this almost unbearable tension in real time. You're not just a spectator watching things happen. No, you are trapped right there inside Jamie's head. You feel his anxiety, his panic, his confusion. It's like it's happening to you. There is literally no escape. Not for him, and definitely not for us watching.
So that feeling, that sense of being completely trapped, it's the perfect bridge from how the show is made to why our main character does what he does. Which brings us to the big question. What is actually going on inside Jamie's mind?
Well, the series makes a really powerful argument here. It suggests that Jamie's actions, they don't come from a place of malice, you know? They come from a really profound identity crisis. It's like all these feelings he can't put into words, this deep-seated anger, this crippling fear of being rejected, this constant confusion about who he even is. It all just explodes into action.
And this actually frames Jamie's whole internal conflict in a classic psychological way. You've got 2 opposing forces here. On one side, you have kimlik, which is Turkish for identity, having a stable sense of who you are. And on the other side, you have rol karmaşası, or role confusion, which is just chaos. It's that desperate search to fit in. And Jamie? He is completely lost in that second one, just scrambling to find any place where he feels like he belongs. But here's the thing. Jamie's internal struggle isn't happening in a vacuum. The show is smart enough to zoom out and look at the huge, powerful, and let's be honest, often toxic external forces that are shaping him and pretty much his entire generation.
And a big part of that is what the series paints as this pretty grim picture of the digital world that modern teenagers are growing up in. I've heard it called a digital hell, and that feels pretty accurate sometimes. It's this whole other world that runs parallel to our reality, but it has very, very real consequences for a young person's mind.
And the show gets really specific about what this world is made of. We're talking about things like exposure to incel culture, these online groups built on resentment and hostility. Then you've got the constant online provocations, these testosterone-fueled flame wars, and just a flood of manipulative content. You throw all of that into a blender, and what you get is a completely distorted view of reality and your own self-worth. So naturally, all of these digital pressures feed directly into this huge crisis of masculinity that the show explores. You see it with the male characters over and over again. They really struggle to show any emotion that isn't anger or just pure defensiveness. They're all trying so hard to live up to this myth of being a strong man. But what the show does so brilliantly is peel that back to reveal what's underneath, this fragile, worn-out identity that is just terrified of showing any kind of vulnerability. Okay, so let's start to pull all of these threads together.
When you look at everything we've talked about, the show really forces you back to that central question. Was what Jamie did a simple crime, or was it the inevitable consequence of a whole system of pressures closing in on him? And you can really see the anatomy of this breakdown right here. It's not one single thing that goes wrong, it's a total chain reaction. Look, it starts right here with that internal identity crisis. That gets amplified by peer pressure. Then that fire is fueled by all those toxic digital influences. Making things even worse is a sense of familial isolation. And finally, the whole thing just crashes against a wall of systemic pressure. It's a perfect storm.
So in the end, what Adolescence does is completely reframe how we think about youth crime. It's not presented as a simple choice between right and wrong. Instead, it's shown as this incredibly complex phenomenon, the results of that perfect storm of social, digital, and psychological factors all hitting at once. Now, the show is not making excuses for what happened, not at all, but it is demanding that we try to understand where it all comes from.
And that right there is what makes this series so damn important. It moves past the simple what happened of a crime story. It forces all of us to ask much deeper, much more uncomfortable questions. Questions like, why did this happen? And maybe the biggest one of all, what does this story tell us about the world we've actually built for our kids? And that's a question that sticks with you long after the credits roll.